of guests. There are almost no places. We have the final section today with two presentations. Arthur Zakirov from Postgres Professional. He will tell us about PG variables as temporary tables. Let's greet him. Thank you, everyone. Hello. My name is Arthur Zakirov and I work at Postgres Professional. And today I will tell you about PG variables extension. This is a relatively small extension that was brought to life 2.5 years ago, and it allows us to store variables in operative memory of the session. Therefore, these are the session variables, and they are eliminated after the session is closed. The variables are also global. That means that you can see them in all transactions and in all functions in the frames during one session. Until the recent time, they were not transitional. We have now the traditionality, and we can drop back to the variables. If you created a variable, you may restore it, and if you change something, you may roll back its old value. Now we can create traditional and in non-traditional variables, and by default they are non-traditional. The functions for operation with variables should contain the information that you need a traditional variable. There is a patch of Stichulia in commit fest. It is the another patch with another aims. The use cases are the others, but still you can create session variables there. And the main difference is that at creation of variables you add information to the system catalog, firstly, and secondly you may order rights to access, to read, and to change the variables. That means you can use it in different cases, but I will not touch upon this topic today. As I already told you, the variables are session bound. That means the session doesn't see any other variables of other sessions. They are united in packages, and therefore you cannot limit the visibility area of a variable. One session sees variable of every other package. Packages are needed only for organization of variables. You can reduce all variables by one deletion of a package. It's very easy to delete many variables at once. You can create as many packages and variables as you want. You may also create different types of variables. There are scalaric massives. They are supported by different types of Postgres types. There are many types of Postgres supported, and you may also save nodes in variables. Therefore, you can create a simple table, and the nodes can be added also additionally or as a whole, but the main thing is that attributes should be the same, the description should be the same, and the order also. The first attribute of all node is a key. Of all entry is a key, and key entry should be unique, has to be unique, and you can search by the key attribute, and but you cannot make it a diapason search. So this is basically a hash table, and you may have only one key. There should be only one key. There are different functions to work with variables. I wanted to get a score interface, SQL interface, but Postgres cannot change syntaxes. I will not describe the function, and GitHub is a README. We have also on our website Russian documentation and description of the functions and temporary tables. I think you know that at creation of temporary tables, information about temporary table is added to the system catalog, firstly, and secondly, all, but perhaps not all, but the data from temporary tables are written down to the disk SSD, and here they are acting as regular tables. There is only one difference. They are not entered in journal, and you don't have any additional entries into WAL, and statistics is also collected to the temporary tables, and this is not the case by PGConf. In temporary tables you can create as many indexes as you want for any attributes, but there is a main problem with temporary tables. Auto vacuum is not cleaning it automatically. So this basically means that you need to perform maintenance manually, and if you have a long session and you are actively using temporary tables. Therefore, because after vacuum is not working with temporary tables, you can face the following problems. Firstly, they can extend. They can be overextended. If you have a very long session, the same table is changed and extended. And if you also have a long session and perhaps they are not changing, you can use wraparound. And in these two cases, you can experience these two cases if you don't make vacuum. But if you make vacuum, you will not face these errors. And additionally, system catalogs contain information on temporary tables. The physical replica does not tolerate creation of such constructions. This is just the general information to wraparound. Your wraparound is due to the frozen table, and if you don't make auto vacuum is not making this happen. And for the other tables, like frozen sit, it changed frozen sit, and therefore frozen sit is also not replaced for databases that are created in rentabase. It is due to frozen sit. It is the minimum of all tables, also including temporary tables. But if you have this wraparound, you need to stop server, to reboot it in user regime, and you need to delete all temporary tables that do not have their replicas. They are not deleted because Postgres at wraparound is transferred to the regime when it is not working with database. Then you need to run vacuum freeze. I have some examples in my presentation. Examples of work with PG variables. I used our demo base that you can download under the link. There is a description of 3 types of database. And in this case, I loaded a table with 3 million of lines. PG variables is used along with PGV insert. And this function, when we start this function, it creates the variables. It is named tickets or packet or bookings. Then you perform search by the key, and the search is relatively rapid, and we have only one entrance with one key for one key. And additionally to the temporary table, we create and fill in the data in 2 seconds, but not in 3.5 seconds. But the search is made in unfair mode, because there is a key in PG variables that allows to make search more rapid, and we can take index in a temporary table. In this case, we create a table and then fill it in with the data. It is filled in 11 seconds compared with 3.5 seconds with PG variables, and the search is made during the same time. If you take one query, there is no difference, but if you may take many queries, the difference at this simple query is threefold. If we made one and the same query 100,000, we arrive at the amount at the time. You can also get not only one entry, but you can get all entries of a variable with the limit set as for a regular table. As for the regular table, Postgres reads beyond stroke, and only then after this action it will give you back 1000 rows, and you can see it in the plan. The same is applicable to the temporary table. The data's this is more rapid than PG variables, because PG variables are not so rapid in a consecutive scanning of hash table. That means that the search for one entry is rapid, but not so rapid when you want to get all the entries, all the similar entries, and you need to put in temp buffers. It's for you to load temporary templates into buffer of Postgres and not to be read from the disk each time. And in this situation, you can see this local hit. It shows the amount of pages that were read from the buffer, and we did not read any page from the disk. We also can make a join with regular tables and variables and tables, and we can also show defined rows of a table. If you can just use the function row, it creates tuple out of 4 rows, and it will write down a PG variables. In this case, I managed to load flights into flights v variable and ran joined with the keyword lateral. It allows us to execute function for each part of the table, and you can transfer the key by using the attribute of the table. It's flight ID in this case, and entries from ticket flights that correspond to ticket number, and we have six entries, and we can use function PGSelect for 6 times. There is a drawback here. Every time we need to define attributes that are stored in a variable, because Postgres doesn't know what function will give back, and we need to write down the rows that were installed earlier. And join join tables. There is nothing special in it. It has lower velocity, because lower speed, because the search for one entry in PG variables is more rapid. And further, I can see the comparison. We can see the comparison for 100 queries, and we have the difference, twofold difference. And we also can run search for not only one key, but if we transfer a set of keys or a massive of keys. And here in this case we can receive a massive by means of a subquery and aggregate function array agg. For example, we can receive the airports with cancelled flights, and we can just use this joiner. And the same is applicable for tables, so regular tables. There is no magic inside of it. There is a subquery and the keyword is in. It is executed more rapid than PG variables. Here we have 32 milliseconds and there were 53 milliseconds. This is due to the fact that Postgres, in this case, can choose a more optimal plan, and it executes scanning of the table flights parallel to the process, to this process, while we are using aggregate function. It does not execute this query, although it is stated in the documents that parallel queries should be executed, but I did not manage to make this. And here I think I'm finished. You can find additional information about demo bases, about extensions, and we have also documents on our website, and you can search for it on this website. Thank you. We have some time for questions, please. Thank you very much for your presentation. My question is, that means that you receive get to the native int, so we save int and we receive int, yes? But if we save array, we will receive back array, and if the received array is a nest, we will receive a table. Unnest. If we say select unnest, it will be the procedure that is applicable. Yes, so this is the approach. Thank you. I would wanted you to go to this list of malfunctions or drawbacks of temporary tables and say what of them are solved in PG variables, because in many points PG variables could not be applicable or won't help. So all the
features of temporary tables. Well, these are not drawbacks. These are special features of them. In the context of your presentation, they can be perceived as differences from the second option. Well, in terms of replication, we cannot transfer PG variables either. You can use PG variables for replication, for replicum. The data will not be replicated, that's quite obvious, but you can devise variables on replica and prepare reports. And statistics is not gathered because there is nothing to gather. They do not need vacuum. They do not need vacuum because they are stored in an optimized way. They do not need vacuum because several versions are present, but in case of updates, they do not bloat. No, they are deleted at once when a transaction is rolled back. The necessary versions of variables are deleted, so vacuum is not needed. Data are not stored on the disk. Statistics are not collected. There are no queries. Well, there is no interface for it. And secondly, well, these cannot be fulfilled. When PG variables can be used and when temporary tables can be used, well, PG variables can be used when you need to get specific answers from variables. If you want to conduct very complicated queries with subqueries and with joins, it's better for you to use temporary tables. But if you want to use something like this on a replica in a limited form, you can get a temporary table using PG variables on the replica. So a typical query for reading PG variables on this key is to get tuples with other fields. Yes, you can use hash and get this query. Thank you for your presentation. I have a question. The source of data for PG variables can be data wrapper. Are there any limitations? Well, I think yes, it's quite alright. So if I set it for a different base, I will be able to download data to temporary table from it. Yes, you can download data from any place. And if foreign data wrapper, that is Postgres, I won't be able to use this temporary table with the source. It will be available only within the transaction that opens this, that is opened by this foreign data wrapper. It will read it and I won't be able to get it from this place, from the source of data. I don't really understand what you mean. Well, I mean that I have a source of data and I want to do join to download the result into the temporary table and get this table from it. I won't be able to do it, right? Well, you can save PG variables from the deleted source, and after that, what do you want to do? And after that, I want to join them with a table from a different database. Using foreign data wrapper? Well, yes, but it's not possible. Why it's possible? Well, foreign data wrapper on a remote server opens its own transaction. There are no problems here. You can get some data from the deleted source, and after that, Postgres will join them inside the session with PG variables. Another question. You showed a slide. The query was not correct. I'm speaking about limit and upset. Normally, there are no such queries. Order by is used because the result of this query will not be definite, but this query is possible. But the data can be different every time. Well, if you use Postgres, the data can differ, but in PG variables, the data will not be different. They will be determined, yes. I have a question. Thanks a lot for your presentation. The issue is very relevant. I looked at select from PG variables, and I think that there is an organic drawback of this variable functionality. Postgres does not know anything about the structure of the record that it receives when select is used, and that's why I have to declare this structure every time. I have to describe names and types. I think that this drawback cannot be eliminated. It will be constant when PG variables are used. You will not write queries manually every time. Yes, I understand that, but it seems to me that a temporary table is more convenient when you are to remember aggregated data. PG variables work quite well. This is my opinion. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I have a question as follows. PG bouncer or TB link, what are the side effects related to temporary tables of PG variables? I'm sorry, could you please repeat your question? Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you for your presentation. Could you please tell us about side effects when PG bouncer or DB link are used with PG variables or temporary tables? PG bouncer. Well, there is a session and it can be reused by different users. So it's better not to do that, because in that case the users will see the variables of other users, because it is the same Postgres session. And it's better not to do it. So this mechanism shouldn't be used here. Although there are a lot of good opportunities, but it's better to use something else, not temporary tables. Not temporary tables and not variables. Further says that you can use it through transactions. I would like to answer this question. You can use it, but you need to understand why you do that. So, it's quite possible when you want to transfer this knowledge between sessions, but I do not think that you will likely do it. And setting PG bouncer in the mode node has 3 modes: when it gives sessions, when it gives transactions, and specific comment sessions and specific comments are not interesting for us, and transactions that use transaction collections and transaction variables are quite useful. Thank you. Yes, it can be used. I have a question. Thanks a lot for your presentation. It's not a question, it's a proposal. You said that variables should be specified. It's possible to arrange a view for select and after that use it. And you have to transfer the key. And another variable. I would like to ask a question. Thank you for the presentation. Sometimes temporary tables are used for interface purposes, so a server of application wants to transfer 100,000 records and they will be processed. Is there any mechanism to transfer them not one by one using select? For example, in Oracle, it was possible to do bulk insert to a temporary table and after that start working. PG variables. Can we use it to do it? Bulk insert can be done from GDBC side. So, to insert 100,000 records, not one by one, but at once, from Java application, I think that it's not a problem. Well, maybe I did not really understand your question. So, if we use variables as a substitute of temporary table for the purposes of interface so that the server of application would communicate with the procedures of databases through it and transfer a lot of rows, not one by one. I know that it's possible to transfer them one by one. You can write select PG variable and write one variable, and you can repeat this operation. I'm sorry for interrupting. You can write select asterisk from PGV select and put cursor above it, and I'm not speaking about reading, I'm speaking about recording. I can read it from the procedure of database and I will record from Java. Select PGV insert from table and it will be recorded, and table does not exist yet. It is in Java. In Java there is an array of data that should be transferred to the database directly to array. Well, PGV insert can be called as many times as needed. 100,000 records can be inserted, and after that you can insert 100,000 records more. Yes, but normally it works slower than one group operation. Am I right that variable stores the result in the local memory? And what is this memory? Workmem? Back-end memory. This is server's random access memory. We know that every back-end has its own set of working memory. Workmem for sorting. Is it stored in this area or in another area? You mean the context? You mean context memory, or this resulting set that we receive should be stored somewhere in the random access memory of backend? Am I right? The set? Well, you receive it, and variables themselves live during the life of the whole session. They are not in shared buffers or 10 buffers, they are in workmem. Am I right? No, not workmem. Random access memory. Somewhere else. There is not a specific setting. I had a question if workmem is not sufficient, if this is not workmem. Well, it's similar to normal queries. Colleagues, unfortunately, we are running out of time. Let's listen to one more question and move on to another presentation. I have another question. If too much data are inserted in PG variables, only my transaction will fail or server will fail. If you receive a message that you run out of memory, then it will fail. Well, now I cannot limit it. No, there are no limits. Thanks a lot. Let's thank Arthur.